Walsh contract. It's reported. I tell you what, when I was watching the report of this on the TV, they made the contract sound so complicated. I was like, what is happening right now? Anyway, we'll just get it short and sweet for you. Basically, on average, it's going to be $1 million a year for the next 4 years. So he's got another year to go on his current contract, and then they'll extend him another 4 years on top of that. So that's another 5 years at the Broncos, reportedly. And it will average out to $1 million a year across that period. Me personally, I think this is... First of all, if it is true that this gets signed and that's the amount, and Walshy has signed with the Broncos, that's a bloody good look for the Broncos that they managed to go to Walshy and go, mate, Paddy Carrigan's taken a pay cut, Payne Haas has, Ezra Mam has, it's time for you now to take a little bit less to stay. So first of all, I think Reece Walsh, if this is true that he has agreed to this, deserves a massive rap. And, you know, how often he gets this negative rap because he's young, he has a bit of swagger about him, he's good looking, and you don't often associate loyalty, taking pay cuts. He's doing exactly that. He's doing exactly that to stay at the Brisbane Broncos if this report is correct. So I think he deserves a lot of credit. And I think I actually think it's a fair deal in regards to if he wants to win a premiership, it's probably where you want to land, even if he was at another club. However, I know other clubs would probably pay $1.5 million for him, some of the lower tier clubs. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, I love it too. And I think you got to remember too, like when he arrived at the Broncos from the Warriors, like he was on unders then too. So like it's twice now.
Yeah.
He's taken unders. So I love it. We always joke about the new salary cap, the old salary cap. Like $1 million a season's great in the old salary cap.
I'll say the line.
Please do.
We're talking about the new salary cap, not the old salary cap. So it's equivalent to about 800 grand.
But how weird is it to be saying like, it's great even in the new salary cap.
Yeah.
Like like you're sort of doing the inverse of what you usually do. I love it. And I think like he's just still so young. He's got so much more footy in front of him. And, hopefully obviously the grand final last year, but seasons like this, I think it could pay dividends for him.
I tell you what, like I know, as I said, because he's easy to dislike because he's polarizing, he's in your face, he's good looking, all that kind of stuff. I think a lot of fans don't realise if you have an impact as often as Reece Walsh has in games, like that's super hard to do. Like if you can go through most games and impact the result, like that is a special talent. Kalen Ponga is almost the king of that. And there was also years where even KP struggled with that. Whereas Reece Walsh, literally every year he's been a part of the NRL, he's impacting games. Now, if you shave off an error or two heading into his next few years, I mean, you're going to have an absolute beast. And I agree with you too, Roo. Like, we forget all the time, the bloke's 21.
Yep.
He's got plenty of time to grow. Timmy, thoughts?
Yeah, look, if it's $1 million per season or thereabouts, as reported, I think it's an absolute steal for Reece Walsh. I do. He's a genuine superstar of the game, and there's so many different ways to look at it, but there's on-field and there's off-field, and when you're paying that much money for a bloke, off-field's almost as important as on-field, and Reece Walsh puts bums on seats for the next 4 years. You can, all your marketing goes around this superstar, flamboyant player for the Brisbane Broncos. Like, by I really hope this isn't right or isn't true, but by post-Origin next season, if he comes out and starts season well with Brisbane, takes them back into top 4 where they, on paper probably should be a top 6, and he wins Queensland and Origin tiers, which he's more than capable of doing, we know the headlines will be there. $1 million a season, like why isn't it 1.4, why isn't it 1.5? This bloke is a superstar. Yes, there are chinks in his games. He has errors. He needs to round out a lot of corners, but he's 22 years old. Like, we spoke about Ponga getting the Knights off the canvas at times this year in the back end of the season. Walsh did it to the Broncos essentially all season, and he was carrying them at times.
Talking to a grand final, like, did they make the grand final without Reece Walsh? Like, I don't think so.
He's a superstar. So $1 million a season, as I said, in 12 months' time or even less than that, we could be sitting there going, that's a steal for Reece Walsh.
Yeah. And just the person he is, like the word superstar gets thrown around so often, but like Ella, we were in Vegas together. Like we watched all these guys walk down the red carpet. When Reece Walsh entered the red carpet in the cowboy hat, jumping up and down, it was just the whole place just erupted, didn't it? Like he is just something different.
Yeah, and as I said, like we constantly always hear the headlines of greedy footy players. He's taking unders, and I know he came back for personal family reasons, but it's still taking unders. He could have gone to another club for a bigger contract. He's taken unders again, and I know people will sit and go, unders, it's still $1 million. Like that's irrelevant to the point. It's what your market value is and what he could get elsewhere. And I think we can all agree, like there's there's a lot of parts of his game he has to round out. Find me a 21-year-old or 22-year-old that doesn't have parts of the game that they need to round out, especially a 21-year-old, 22-year-old that takes the risks that he takes. Like I've seen a few people that were comparing guys that were 2 or 3 years into their career to Kalen Ponga now. And what always frustrates me when you see a guy like Kalen Ponga eventually reach to what he has reached with how good he's been, they just it's like they just forget, mate, he's had years where it was 2 or 3 years where it was extremely quiet, didn't do much. Nathan Cleary had years where it was extremely quiet. It takes time to develop as a player, especially in that position. I love it. I love it.
You add into it as well, Kempy, like, you talk about his errors, and yeah, he has more than most players in the NRL, but he's given it a licence by Kevy Walters, by Billy Slater, to play this attacking, flamboyant style of footy where, you know, he goes to the line at such speed, he throws some pretty outrageous pass time. Like, if they said to him, mate, we want you to be more like Dylan Edwards or more like James, say, tuck it under your arm, run it more, you know, risk mitigation, less errors, he could do it. But that's not his style of football. He's been given those orders by his coaches, and more often than not, it comes off.
Yeah. And I think also that the key for him is just time and place. Yep. Like, I think if you were to look at specifically, all right, what would you fix in his game? It would be, well, you know, instead of throwing that crazy cutout ball on the third tackle coming out of your own end, throw the cutout ball, you know, on their 40-metre line, on the fourth tackle. That's genuinely, it's not actually the cutout ball's the issue, it's just the time and place, which he will work out. Because guess what? Billy Slater had the same issue. I remember speaking to Smithy a couple of weeks ago, and we talked about that infamous ball that he threw back in to New Zealand and they scored and won it. And I said, oh, Smithy, like, was he devastated? Like, was he like rattled and he threw that ball in and basically it ended the game and New Zealand won? And Smithy said, no, he said he'd do it every time again. That opportunity come again, he'll do it every time. He said, because that's what got him into first grade. That is who he was as a player. The only difference is just picking the time, picking the moment, which, you know, it's like when you actually think about it at an even deeper level, if Billy was to remove that part of his game, what makes him that different to other fullbacks that are pretty quick? Like, you know, for example, Reece Walsh, if he comes and becomes conservative, he's a relatively small, really quick fullback. Like, you know what I mean? You're basically taking away his big weapon.
And if I'm coaching against Reece Walsh and I know he's going to be more conservative, I'm going, thank fuck.
Yeah, mad. Awesome.
Yeah. Unreal.
Yeah.
Because, yes, he might get 3 errors, but he can also pull off 4 plays that I know my team can't defend.
Yeah. There's no system that can sort it out. So, yeah, I'm stoked. If it is true and it all comes to fruition, and I just want to reiterate the fact, he's taken a pay cut to stay at the Brisbane Broncos. Like, that says a lot about his character, and I hope people remember that. Especially, like, let's say the Broncos go well the next few years and he's been on this pay cut, and then in the 3rd or 4th year, he goes, you know, I want an upgrade. Let's remember the time that he took the pay cut, guys. Because I guarantee you, if he does ask for an upgrade of 3 or 4 years after the Broncos, let's say they've been going well, people will be like, oh, greedy this, greedy that. It's like, mate, he's taken the pay cut. He's done the right thing by the club. So, yeah, I'm excited. Super, super stoked if it does come through. And I'm such a fan of Walshy as a player and as a bloke. Cannot wait to see him develop.
It would be crazy to see if he did hit the open market, like, as a footballer, but just as a fucking billboard.
Yeah, it's the billboard.
It's the billboard factor that I think people sleep on. Like you said, 1.5 before, which sounds outrageous for a guy that hasn't won a comp. You know, he's only played 3 or 4 years. But, man, like, if you had 2 clubs that looked at him and went, okay, this could be a turning point, he could push higher than that, I reckon. I genuinely do.
Well, look at Joey, just came out recently, and you may disagree with this, but he said that KP was a bigger signing than Ben Kennedy at the Knights.
I do disagree, but Joey would probably know slightly better.
But, like, that. It just shows you when KP signed for that massive wicket, $750K, and he played 3 or 4 first grade games, people are going, what the hell? And then he signed for another one. He's the highest paid player in the NRL. Yep. I don't think any Knights fans sitting there going, oh, I wish we didn't pay him fucking 1.4.
Imagine what the new Perth franchise would pay for Reece Walsh. Year one, trying to... And also, over there, how's it going to go? That there are question marks around the new Perth franchise. You have Reece Walsh to promote the game over there. Boom.
Put him on every news station, every TV. Ella, what do you reckon?
Oh, I think Reece Walsh has, like, introduced a whole new audience to rugby league. Like, my TikTok is full of teenage girls obsessed with Reece Walsh, going to Broncos games just to see him. So, like, I think it's great for the game that you can tap into that kind of audience.
What's crazy is, like, I can totally relate with Reece Walsh. The same thing happened to me when I was except it was blokes.
And there was no
They just
TikTok.
loved their footy. And there was no TikTok.
No TikTok, yeah.
No, but you're right. It's like as blokes that I'm not on TikTok. Like Bloke and a bar is on TikTok, but I don't consume TikTok. I don't go on it. I don't really know about it. You know, we probably represent a big portion of the rugby league community, but that's a huge portion of the audience you want to kind of be attracted. And Reece Walsh is one of the very rare players that does. Like, I'm trying to think of another young guy that...
It's all Broncos players. It's like Reece Walsh, Jordan Ricky and Pat Carrigan.
Yeah.
Like, those are the three.
Can I tell you, there's the Broncos have signed in the last year or two Chanel Harris-Tavita's younger brother, who they reckon is going to be a very good... Like, the Warriors were filthy to let him go, and the Warriors sort of... Their negotiations with him, from what I've gathered, he just said, I want to play with Reece Walsh.
Wow.
Like, Chanel Harris-Tavita is at the Warriors, his brother, and it sounds like they couldn't get past the fact that he just wanted to play with Reece Walsh.
That's incredible. That's crazy. I mean, it's reality. It's reality. So it's a great insight. Like, that's a whole part of rugby league that we, getting a bit older, we don't know about, but it's important. You have to engage the next generation.
Yep.
Yeah, incredible. Awesome stuff. Stoke.